This is the news in brief from the United Nations. Every single country in Europe and Central Asia is facing a real threat of COVID-19 resurgence, or already fighting it, the UN Health Agency has announced. Globally, more than 5 million deaths have been reported since the start of the pandemic 22 months ago. The real number is likely much higher, said Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, head of the World Health Organization (WHO), before repeating his call for a fairer vaccine rollout.
We continue to hear excuses about why low-income countries have only received 0.4% of the world's vaccines. One is that low-income countries can't absorb vaccines. That's not true. With the exception of a few fragile, conflict-affected and vulnerable countries, most low-income countries are ready to go. The problem is simply that they cannot get the vaccines.
Speaking at a press conference in Geneva on Thursday, Tedros noted that last week 56 countries from all regions of the world reported an increase in deaths from the coronavirus of more than 10%. To help more countries tackle COVID, the WHO Director General announced that the agency has now approved emergency use listing of Covaxin, the 8th vaccine to receive WHO validation for safety, efficacy and quality. International calls for the restoration of democratic government in Sudan continued on Friday as the Human Rights Council met in Geneva to discuss the recent military coup. Leading condemnation for the 25th of October takeover, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet said that at least 13 civilians have been reportedly killed by military and security forces and more than 300 injured.
This disproportionately and deadly use of force by the Sudan Armed Forces, the Rapid Support Forces and other security forces, including military police and intelligence element, must end immediately. Those responsible for these and other human rights violations must be held fully accountable for their actions.
The UN High Commissioner also cited disturbing reports of violence committed against women, including an early morning raid on a dormitory of female students near the military headquarters in Khartoum on the day of the coup. The students were terrorised and beaten, resulting in injuries, Ms Bachelet told the Council, where Sudan did not take the floor in right of reply. The coup had betrayed the courageous and inspiring revolution of 2019, the UN rights chief insisted, in reference to the grassroots protest movement that led to the overthrow of President Omar al-Bashir, who had ruled for 3 decades. Bulgaria has been urged to ensure humane conditions for detained migrants, especially children, UN-appointed independent rights experts said on Friday. Their call followed the first official visit to the country of the UN Subcommittee on the Prevention of Torture at the invitation of the government. After visiting police stations and prisons, the experts also went to a state-run centre for people who are either held for identification or pending their deportation. A high number of migrants and asylum seekers in Bulgaria are detained in such centres, they said in a statement, which emphasised the importance of ensuring humane conditions, healthcare services and legal assistance to detainees. Some were unaccompanied children living in what were described as very difficult conditions, the experts noted, before underscoring the constructive dialogue with the authorities during their visit. Daniel Johnson, UN News.